Hello, I'm Nido Qubein. Welcome to Side by Side. My guest today is a #1 New York Times bestseller author. He's a speaker, a coach, a leader who has sold more than 33 million books. This gentleman influences Fortune 500 CEOs, the presidents of nations, and entrepreneurs worldwide. It's why he's being called the most influential leadership expert in the world. We're talking with my friend, Dr. John Maxwell.
Funding for Side by Side with Nido Qubein is made possible by...
Here's to those that rise and shine, to friendly faces doing more than their part, and to those who still enjoy the little things. You make it feel like home. Ashley Home Store. This is home.
The Bud Group is a company of everyday leaders making a difference by providing facility solutions through customized janitorial, landscape, and maintenance services.
Coca-Cola Consolidated is honored to make and serve 300 brands and flavors locally. Thanks to our teammates. We are Coca-Cola Consolidated, your local bottler.
John, welcome to Side by Side. My goodness, your influence has been felt from border to border, coast to coast, countries around the world. You have written so many books, 80 plus books, sold almost 35 to 40 million copies. You've coached people, you've planted seeds of greatness everywhere you've been, and you began as a minister of a church in Indiana.
I did, with 3 people the first Sunday. And 2 of them were my wife, Margaret, and me. Honestly, Nido. And it was an elderly lady who lived right beside the church named Maud. So it was Maud, Margaret, and me the very first Sunday. And you know what's interesting about where you start is I just loved where I started. And people look at me today where I am, and they say, you just must love your life and love what you're doing. I said, well, I do, but I loved what I was doing in Southern Indiana with 3 people. And I think so many times we just kind of get destination disease, kind of thinking that somewhere out there is going to be the answer for us, or we're going to be fulfilled out there. And I just think that when you love what you do and you do what you love, doesn't matter how big you are, how small you are, you just enjoy the journey. And I can honestly say that I've had a wonderful journey, but it isn't like it's gotten wonderful in the last 10 years. It was wonderful. And by the way, Hillham, Indiana is where I started.
3 people.
3 people.
Went on to be a big church, and then you built churches in California and Ohio.
Yes.
And they were mega churches.
Yeah, by the time I was 29, I had the 10th largest church in America. And people would ask me what happened. And honestly, I would just say, well, work hard. You know, I mean, it was kind of like, I didn't quite understand why they couldn't build a great church. And it took me a couple, 3 years to really understand that I was a good leader. And when I came to the conclusion that everything rises and falls on leadership, Nido, that was the moment everything turned as far as I said, now I know if it's true that everything rises and falls on leadership, I'm going to give my life to helping people learn how to lead. Because if I can help them learn how to lead, no matter what profession they have, they're going to do better. And so that's kind of when I just bought into what I thought and believed. And what's beautiful, 50 years later, I believe it more than what I did in the beginning. And I think that's huge too. I think you really know you have something when over the years it's proven, and it's kind of like I'm more certain about it today than I was when I began. And I think that's kind of a beautiful thing.
And you've been named the #1 leadership speaker in the world for a reason, John, because you have indeed shown people how to lead. What is your definition of leadership?
I think leadership, Nido, is just influence, and I think that we make it way too complicated. I think we want to attach position with it or title with it. And you know, Mother Teresa was an incredible leader, a great influencer worldwide. She never had a title. I mean, she worked in the slums of Calcutta. And I think that we make leadership way too complicated. And I just sit back and I try to be a communicator and take things complicated and make it simple for people. And I just share with people, leadership is influence. And then they say, well, then how do I increase my influence? And I say, by intentionally adding value to people on a daily basis. The moment that you begin to intentionally add value to people, they begin to influence you. I mean, think of people in your life that have influence with you. There are people that have just been a plus in your life, and all of it, you just say, I need them. And so I think that it just begins, I tell young people all the time, if you really want to be a great leader, just start by specifically, intentionally adding value to people on a daily basis.
If leadership is influence, that follows, therefore, not every leader is doing good.
Leadership at its best brings the best out of people. Leadership at its worst brings the worst out of people. And so the rising of leadership is competence and values. When you show me a leader that has competence and has great values, and they're going to rise, and the people are going to rise with them. But the fall part is incompetence and lack of values. And in fact, one of the reasons I've been so attracted to what you do at High Point University is I think you really do a great job with life skills, competence, and values. I know nobody that does it better than you anywhere. And that's kind of always drawn me to you, because you're that type of a leader. You're an example of a person that's highly competent, but also a person that really has that inner core of values that allows you to do the right thing for the right reason, because as well as I do, that leadership that doesn't do the right thing for the right reason, it's very damaging.
So, well, thank you for that, John. Tell me this, what would be the 3 top ingredients for a good leader to develop?
Well, I think number 1 is humility.
What is humility?
I think, humility isn't self-depreciation. A lot of people say, well, I'm not very good. That isn't, humility is not thinking less of yourself, but it is thinking of yourself less. And what humility means, that I have the ability to get beyond myself and really care for people and be interested in those people and who they are and what they do. And humility makes us teachable. And I think that's absolutely, the core to growth is having a teachable spirit, always wanting to learn. Well, who wants to always learn? A person that's humble, who believes that everybody is their teacher, and every experience has something to teach them in. And so I put humility at the top, and the other reason I put it at the top is I think a leader without humility does great damage. It's only a matter of time until there's a difference between moving people and motivating people and manipulating them. When I manipulate people, I move them for my own personal advantage, which is always wrong. When I really motivate them, I motivate them for their advantage. And I think that when we lack humility, I think we begin to put ourselves first before people. So I think that. So humility.
So you can have humility and confidence at the same time.
Oh, very much so. In fact, a false humility is, I'm nothing, or I couldn't do this, and that's I'm not talking about that at all. But I am talking about a real sense of knowing that other people have worth and value, and it just makes us teachable. So I would say that would be number 1. I would say number 2 with a leader would be authenticity, just being real, and there's something that is. See, I think success has a tendency to create a gap between the successful person and the people. And that's one of the things I've never liked about success. I always say, how do I shorten or remove that gap? And I want friends, but I don't want fans. And I think if I have fans, I have a tendency to show them what I think they want to see. But I think if I have friends, they know who I really am.
What is the glue that makes it possible? Not fans, but friends. That success can create this gap between the successful and the not so successful. Well, that's a really powerful point, John.
I think it is too, and I think that the person who is successful, I think it's my responsibility to remove the gap. It's my responsibility not to allow people to be fans of mine, but to be friends of mine. And what I mean by that is...
And how do you do that?
Well, you do that by, first of all, caring and valuing people and not wanting to keep... Walk slowly through the crowd. Walk slowly through the crowd. Let people know that you care for them and that you value them. And you do that also by being very honest about not only what you do well, but being very honest about what you don't do well. And what I tell people all the time is, I have a few real high gifts, but I'm really average in so many areas of my life. And I had, Nido, I have to say this, because I had a mentor that really helped me in this area. And it's when we were going back to when I was 29, I had the 10th largest church. And one Sunday after my big day, he took me to lunch. We had a 3-hour lunch, and he said to me something that just changed my life. Changed my life. He said, John, you're highly gifted, but your gifts are greater than you. And so I'm sitting back there and I said, well, you're going to help me understand. He said, you are so gifted in a few areas that when people come up to you, they're going to say you're amazing. And he said, I just want you to know you're not amazing, John. I know you really well, and you've got some real faults, and you've got some. You're not a perfect person.
Did you ask him to leave the congregation at that point?
Yeah. No, he was my mentor. I couldn't. In fact, I was afraid he was going to ask me to leave the congregation, Nido. But the point being, he taught me that day something very important. He said, when people say you're amazing, they're really confusing the giftedness that you have. And he said, always understand that you have a gift, and it was God-given. And God's amazing. He gave you the gift, but remember, it's a gift. You didn't earn it. You didn't deserve it. You're not like amazing yourself. He just created you with a purpose and gave you that gift to really help and add value to people. But he said, always remember that gift that you have. When they say it's amazing, just be grateful to God that you have the gift.
And that's what creates authenticity.
I think it does.
Yes.
Because then when people say you're amazing, I said, well, yeah, you saw me in my sweet spot. Come home with me and see me every day, and you won't think I'm too amazing at all. In fact, when you raise up your children, you sometimes think, I don't think I'm amazing at all. But the point is, I think that authenticity, humility, and then I think, thirdly, having great values. I'm just passionate about a person embracing and living out good values, because I feel that when people learn good values and they live those good values, I just think they become a plus and an asset to everybody that's around them, family, community, whatever their work is. I just think that they begin to really bless people when they do things for the right reasons, and they just are. They're bigger on, kind of like they're better on the inside than they are on the outside, and they're bigger on the inside than they are on the outside.
Yeah, and the having such values certainly can keep us on the right track, because good habits are hard to develop, John, but they're easy to live with. Bad habits are easy to develop, but they're hard to live with.
That's exactly.
If your values are clear, your behavior is clear, your beliefs are clear, your results are going to be better. Totally. So authenticity above charisma, right? At any time.
I think charisma is a little overrated. I think it gets you in the door, but I don't think it keeps you in the door. I think it gives me an instant audience. I think it gets me a quick applause. I think it's kind of like, let me sign up. I think charisma does that. But I think if you don't have credibility and authenticity, it doesn't really. How long does it take for people to know that you're not the real deal?
Yeah.
And so I say, I think charisma is important, but I wouldn't put it not in the top
It's
three.
interesting that I asked you the question, what are the 3 most important traits that a leader should have? You did not say skills. You did not say communication. You said humility, authenticity, and values.
Yeah.
At some point, you got to say skills and competence and experience.
Yeah, totally. But you see, when you have the inner part right, now the skill set just begins to be enhanced. I mean, how far can you go? Well, there's a skill set that's going to allow you to go so far. But what sets people apart is that they have good skills, they're very competent, but they use those skills for the right reasons. And that's the difference maker. I think that's what gets us out of what I call the talent pile. I mean, there's a lot of talented people there, but what is it that allows some people that are talented to just have a great, long, influential life, and other people that kind of crash and burn? And it wasn't a skill problem. No. It was a values. It was an inner issue. Wrong values, not lack of humility, just, thinking they're more important than they really are, lack of good values. Let me put it this way. I don't think great values would necessarily make a great leader without skill set, but I think it disqualifies a great leader. And so I'm always looking at the fact, if I have the skill set, what I need to be really aware of is what's the disqualifier. I got to make sure that I keep that inside. I think if you're bigger on the inside, you will become bigger on the outside. I just think it's automatic. And I just think what's on the inside after a period of time shows up on the outside.
So, if you're giving an advice to someone about how to become a great leader, obviously you would say those three things, but what else would you really say in terms of practical, pragmatic application in life and with people?
I was so fortunate. I've had a lot of great mentors in my life. I mean, I owe so much to so many people who walked in my life at different times and just really helped me. And in the very beginning, I had a mentor. In fact, he's 88 today. And I just affectionately call him E.T. And he said to me when I was about 24, he said, John, visit great places, meet great people, read great books, engage in great experiences, and have great thoughts. And he just really challenged me to be very aware of where I spent my time and who I spent my time with, and what I was doing and where I was going. And I became quite intentional by that. And I think that, if you hang around the barber shop every day, sooner or later you're going to get a haircut. You just are. You know what I mean? It's the environment. It's kind of like, well, I might as well climb in that chair and let him do a little clipping myself. And I think that, and again, if you don't mind, I just have to go back to, I think that's been the secret of High Point University. I think that you have created a great environment for students to come and in this environment be exposed to all the things I just said that my mentor said when I was 24 that I needed. And what is the result of that? You can't be in a great environment without coming out on the other side and improving yourself.
So the whole point is choose to be extraordinary, right? It's a choice.
You ought to use that.
It's a choice.
Honest to God, I gave you permission to use that for High Point University.
Who you spend time with is who you become. What you choose is what you get. Yeah. John, let's talk about failure for a moment.
Yes.
Have you had failures in your life?
Many.
Name us one, and what did you learn from it?
Well, my first, oh my gosh, I've had many, many failures. My first failure was when I was very young and I hired my first staff member, and I had the idealism that we'll do life together, we'll do mission together, and isn't this amazing? I'm 24 and you're 22, and we really liked each other, and it was wonderful for a couple of years. And then his behavior went south, and I had to let him go. And wow, I said to myself, the mistake wasn't hiring him, the mistake was my reaction. I said, I was so close to him, and I poured so much into him, I'm never going to do that again. That hurt too much. So when I hire, I'll hire them and say, this is your job, and I'll do my job, and we'll meet at the Christmas party. You know what I'm saying? But I'm going to do this. I'm not going to let people get close to me, which was a huge failure. It's a huge mistake. And I did that for about a year. And it wasn't working at all. There was no camaraderie. There was nothing that was connecting me with my staff. And I came to the conclusion one day that yes, as a leader, I'm going to be deeply hurt. There are going to be times and people and situations that it's going to hurt a lot. But if I keep, here's the good news: if I keep people at a distance, they can't hurt me, but they won't help me. But if I just let them in, boy, they can help me, and yes, every once in a while, there'll be a hurt. And so it was a great learning experience from that. But just let me say one more thing about failure, because I think the subject is totally misunderstood. I think failure and success should never be separated. And people say, well, succeed, don't fail, and I look and I say, I've never known anybody that succeeded that didn't fail. Let's get them where they belong together, because there's something beautiful about failure that teaches us humility, that in our success we can handle it. And there's something about success that encourages and takes failure out of the ditch to give us courage and resilience and tenacity. And I think we make a huge mistake, but keep them together because they are together. And no matter what age, no matter how good you are, you still have your misses and your mess ups.
Of all the books that you've written, and you've written many of them, do you have a favorite?
Yes.
What is it?
The one I'm writing.
The one you're writing.
The one I'm writing.
The one you're hoping is going to sell another million next time.
No, it's always
and help
the one.
A lot of people.
It's always the one I'm writing. So when I'm writing this book, I say, this is my favorite book. I love. Why didn't I write this earlier? So I write it, and get it off the publisher. So now I'm writing another book.
So what does that mean? The one I'm writing.
What it means is, if you don't love and greatly value where you are now, you won't give people the best product that they deserve. And so, in fact, I think when I stop saying my favorite book is the book I'm writing, I think I'm going to stop writing.
That applies to your speeches?
Totally.
Seminars,
Totally.
coaching?
Everything.
Yeah.
What I'm doing today is my best. But tomorrow, I've got to go to better. So my ceiling on best today, Nido, is my floor tomorrow. I take best and say, I gave it my best shot, but now I've got to build off it. And I think that's how you improve. I think that's how you keep learning and growing and expanding your potential.
Yes, absolutely. That's what transformation is all about.
That's what transformation
reaching the highest level of our potential.
That's exactly right.
Can you think of a time that you took a risk that scared you? Maybe it's a business risk, a risk that scared you, and you had the guts not to avoid the risk, but to take the risk, and you knew that you can manage this risk, and maybe you did, maybe you didn't.
Yeah, I can. In fact, there have been many of them, but maybe I don't know. When I was a pastor for 25 years, and my publisher one day in a publishing meeting said, "You do realize that 2/3 of your books are being bought by the business community?" And I had no clue. I said, "You're kidding me." "Oh no," he said, they're just grabbing your leadership principles. And of course, I'm a person of faith, so immediately I felt called to cross over because I felt this
Was that a risk?
Oh,
in your mind, was it a risk?
A book had just been written that I was one of the 10 most influential churches in America, and that I was a pastor in San Diego with this huge congregation, and I was known throughout the town, and all of a sudden I was going to leave all that good stuff and go into a world
different market.
That's exactly right. I mean, and start all over. Basically, I know that my leadership stuff was out there, but I was starting all over, and for 3 years. I had just a huge steep climb. In fact, every time I was with a business person, I'd just have to ask them questions, and I was trying to learn their world so that I could connect even better with the world. That was a huge risk, and then.
But that's a risk that worked for you.
Oh, it was a risk
in a big way.
Yeah.
What is the most difficult thing about being a pastor of a church? Too many people who think they're the bosses.
Well, it's hard to lead a church is like a family, which is beautiful, but it's like a family, which is ugly. And when you want to make a hard decision, but you can't. Uncle Joe's been with us for life. And so for a person who really wants to grow something, they have to be very skilled. I say it's much easier to build a business than a church, because the church is all volunteer. I mean, hey, if they don't like you, they don't come back. Hey, in a business, you get paid to do the work. In a church, you ask people to give you money. I mean, hey, Nido, it's a much higher. Let me do this. If you can build a great church, you can pretty well build a great business. Trust me, because you've developed those people.
The church
skills.
is like a university, John. That's really what you're saying. Yes.
Yes, like a university. It's like a country club. There are certain things that, So, but that was part
What's next for John Maxwell?
I am so excited. I'm 74, and the best days are really ahead of us. In our organization, in the John Maxwell enterprise, we have 7 different companies. Mark Cole is the co-owner and also the CEO of them. But we have been doing transformation in countries for now 10 years. And we started with Guatemala, we went to Paraguay, we went to Costa Rica, now we're in the Dominican Republic, we're getting ready to go to New Guinea. But it's all based on putting values back into people's lives. And so very simply what we do is we start with the top 10%, not the bottom. Most nonprofits go to the low-hanging fruit. We think there's value there, but one thing we know is if you go to the bottom 10%, influence never filtered up. And so it just stays with the bottom 10%. Yeah. So we said, it'll take longer and it'll be harder, but let's crack the top 10% and let the influence filter down. And so we're invited in by the presidents of the countries, and we go in and we do values training in the 8 streams of influence in that country in small groups. And we go for 10%, the tipping point, to turn it around. And we're just seeing remarkable things happen.
And that's a great feeling.
It's all in front of us. It's all in front of us, so I'm excited.
You know, John Maxwell, you may have been born in Michigan, but you're a citizen of the world and bringing leadership to all corners of the world. We thank you for who you are, for what you do, and I know the days ahead are just a start for you. Thank you for being with me side by side.
Thank you, my friend.
Funding for Side by Side with Nido Qubein is made possible by...
Here's to those that rise and shine, to friendly faces doing more than their part, and to those who still enjoy the little things. You make it feel like home. Ashley Home Store. This is home.
The Bud Group is a company of everyday leaders making a difference by providing facility solutions through customized janitorial, landscape, and maintenance services.
Coca-Cola Consolidated is honored to make and serve 300 brands and flavors locally. Thanks to our teammates. We are Coca-Cola Consolidated, your local bottler.